Well, greetings everyone. Great to see you. Welcome to this edition of the Software Showcase. I am Mark Stedman, and I'm here joined by Glenn Oliver, my project manager and all-around great guy. Good to see you, Glenn.
Great to see you. I keep saying it's going to be a special, software showcase session, and I mean it every time, but this time is even extra special.
Yeah, Glenn, it has been a busy year here at the ranch in Orlando. And we are, of course, sliding into the end of the fiscal year. And this morning I was talking to Tim Nye about our software showcases and basically explained to him the reason I do these is because, writing a report about what we've done is kind of boring. So it's actually more fun to present it on video. So shout out to Tim. Hope you're going to watch this later on. So
give him a passing grade.
Give us all a passing grade. So we have worked on a ton of stuff this year. But this, as you know, is a very important topic to me, and I think really to all of us, which is oral Bible translation. And today, we have some really exciting stuff to finally show off after having mentioned it a few times, sort of peppering it in.
We have kind of teased it a little bit.
We've teased it a bit.
Yeah.
Before we jump into that, I do want to remind people that we do put this on YouTube after we do the live stream. And on YouTube, you can like and subscribe. That's helpful for us. It helps other people find it. People are interested in things like oral Bible translation. They may come along and learn about oral Bible translation from the work we do and actually use our tools because all of our tools are free. We want people to use them. They're not for sale. It's not hard to get them. We want everybody to have them. So if you watch this on YouTube later, you can like and subscribe. Or if you want to share it with friends, Glenn sends that link out a day or two after the live stream.
But if you are watching with us live, you guys have a superpower everyone else doesn't have. You can actually ask us questions. So in case we forget to mention it later on, feel free to drop your questions in the channel, and we'll try to answer them as we have time throughout the presentation.
Yeah, you don't have to wait until it's Q&A time. We actually have a producer sitting over here, Craig Oliver, Glenn's brother, who is our senior software developer and another all-around nice guy. So he moderates that chat, and he'll promote some of those questions to us, and he may even answer some of them himself if they're easy answers. So the other thing we're doing, Glenn, is this is going to be part 1 of 2.
Yeah, we looked at everything we wanted to show for today, actually fighting for airtime, and realized by the time we got done, although we're having a great time, people are like, hey, I got to go now. Dinner's on the stove. So we thought, okay, let's split it up. Let's do it 2 days consecutively. So hopefully to get you excited about what's going on, but keeping it to a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, so basically what we're going to do is part 1 today, we wanted to give an overall roadmap and a sort of broader view of the ecosystem of all the tools that we have and how they fit together. And we are going to premiere one tool today, a little bit later, which I'm very excited about. That will take a little bit less time to demonstrate. Mm-hmm. Then tomorrow, we're going to dispense with all that overhead, all that discussion about kind of the whole ecosystem, and we're going to get right into Orature.
Orature, yes.
And Glenn will actually be driving that. It'll be really great, because if you did want to share that with your friends, they might not want to watch, say, an hour or an hour and a half worth of content. You can just send them the part that would apply for them.
Yep.
So, I think we're soon ready here to jump in. We've actually got a deck today, so that we can take a look at some of the things that we're doing. There we are. That's us. So, Glenn, I thought we would take a moment and talk about where it is that we have come from. You joined the organization way back in 2014.
February 2nd, 2014.
Yeah. Not that long after I moved into the role as VP of Information Technology. And I just need to mention to Craig, the wrong slide is up, Craig. I'm not sure if you're still showing the pre-roll on yours or if we need to switch out. There it is. So there you go. Now the slide is what we're talking about. So 2014, it was just a couple of us, a ragtag band. And, one of the first things that we jumped into was Translation Recorder.
Wow, that was huge at the time.
Yeah.
I remember we had Ken Haw came from the field saying, hey, we've been trying to figure out how to do oral translation. And he'd show us on his phone or some sort of
recording devices,
recording
devices,
and he was saying this is so hard.
Yeah,
naming it, keeping track of it, and heavens knows when they'd actually lose. Like they'd make a recording and the thing would get stuck, and they'd have to reboot it, and oops, it's gone.
Or you lost the whole day worth of work. So they would have like Ziploc baggies full of SD cards and just tons of files and trying to figure out how do you name the files and how do I make sure you're naming in the way that I'm naming them. So 2015. We got ourselves 5 interns. We kept them in the office for 5 weeks. We fed them pizza and asked them to do work. It was a great time. So we got some really great output from that.
Yeah.
We've come a long way. Translation Recorder, of course, has now been renamed BTT Recorder. But we brought in Joe Sarabia, who will be in the studio with us tomorrow for Orature.
That's right.
Joe joined our team at that time and is really, I would say, in the world of oral Bible translation, he is probably one of the most senior engineers in terms of software. He understands the challenges. He understands how to architect the software. And we are very glad to have him on our team.
I would even say almost a pioneer.
Yeah. So then a couple years after that Translation Exchange, we realized, hey, as good as Recorder is, it needed a place to send its files, to do collaborative checking, a place to do backup. How do I make sure that all the files aren't just living on an Android tablet, a $200 or $300 Android tablet. So Translation Exchange, another summer project, of course. That with 12 interns for 8 weeks. So that was...
Yeah, we referred to that earlier in another showcase, the little black box that had the little wire antennae on it because it broadcasts its own internet. So it doesn't matter actually, give it power and it's able to handle that, talk to all the tablets and is able to collect their information. So people can confer or collaborate and at least back up and store. Yeah. Just easy like that.
So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about Exchanger today because we do have a software showcase that we did already, and I'll actually put a link to that on the YouTube video, and you can check that out. But we're going to talk about how Exchange fits into the ecosystem. So we're going to jump ahead there in a little bit.
Okay.
Then in 2019, Wycliffe Associates launched Bible in Every Language.
Right.
So Bible in Every Language is a curated list of all the translation work that WA has been involved in accelerating and helping the global church to begin on its own. So if you are familiar with the MAST process, that's a fantastic drafting, checking, and producing scripture process. And so Wycliffe Associates has had the opportunity to be involved in I believe we're at about 2,000 language groups that we've impacted that have started a mass translation. Some of them have finished those mass translations. Some of them have portions finished. And so we wanted a place where a group of translators would be able to find their finished and checked scripture and to do things with it. So we actually have a software showcase we did on Beal. We're not going to talk a ton about the written side of Beal yet, but we are going to talk about a new section of Beal that's pretty exciting.
Yep, brand new.
So it is, but the thing to remember is that curated list. So people doing translation work can't themselves just automatically put things on Beal.
Correct.
There's a bit of a librarian curation function that Wycliffe Associates provides, whereby the global church says, hey, this isn't just something that we worked on a little bit, but it's actually been through all the steps of MAST, it's been checked, this is the level it's been checked to, these are the translators that worked on it.
So it's kind of like things that have been published, essentially, electronically published, if you
will. In a sense. And it nothing gets on there where there's any question around the copyright, because of course Wycliffe Associates believes strongly that scripture should not be encumbered by copyright, it should be released freely. So any translations that end up there have been released under CC by SA so that anybody else can use them, can download them, can print them, can consume them in their church, use them for Bible study and whatnot. And then we need to know the translators, or at least a pseudonym of who worked on it and all those kinds of things. So there's a little bit of a curation feature there, function there, and then things go on to Bible in Every Language. So 2020, which is what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about Orature, and now we're going to talk about audio on Beal, Bible in Every Language.
Right.
Because until now, Beal has been all written scripture.
Correct. And Orature is significant in the sense that that's the first piece of software that has really come into being after MAST was established. So taking the methodology and MAST methods in mind as you're doing the process.
Yeah, that's right. So Recorder, the Android oral Bible translation software, is great. We like to say it is MAST compliant, but it doesn't force you into the MAST methodology. And some of that's because it was being developed at the same time that MAST was really coming into its own. So it can be used for MAST, but it doesn't enforce MAST.
Correct. We like to often think of it as an excellent drafting tool.
Yeah.
Very rapid.
Yeah, rapid drafting, and then you can do your checking in Exchanger. You can even do checking just with Recorder. We can just exchange tablets and things like that. But
as we do,
that's not always the best way to do that. So today we're going to focus on the audio section on Bible in Every Language. Really excited about that. And then we're going to talk about Orature more tomorrow.
How do these things fit together, though?
It's great. I wish we had a slide for that. Let's see what comes up. Hey, we have a slide for that. So we mentioned Recorder, and Recorder is sort of the granddaddy.
Mm-hmm.
It's the baby and the granddaddy, right?
That's where it started.
Yeah, it's where it all started. So the couple years later, we built Exchanger, like we said, and Recorder basically allows you to take your files and push them into Exchanger, like we said, for backup and for collaborative checking, things like that. That then can flow onto Bible in Every Language, this new section, this audio section for Bible in Every Language, which we're going to demo a little bit later. Now we've added Orature into the mix. So Orature fits really in that first phase of the drafting and revision and checking stage. So it's a translation tool.
Mm-hmm.
It also will be able to push to Exchanger. Now, I want to make sure that we're clear. Some of what we're going to talk about in terms of like this high-level stuff is in existence today and is working, and some of it is on the roadmap. So, for instance, Orature pushing to Exchanger at the moment is on the roadmap.
Correct.
That's not presently working. Recorder does push to Exchanger. Some architectural changes we need to make there in order for Orature to send its files to Exchanger and for Exchanger to know what to do with them.
Yep.
But it's on the roadmap, and it should be coming soon. So, one thing that makes Orature really unique is that it actually consumes information from Bible in Every Language. So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Excellent. So one of the issues with Orature when you're starting a new project, Orature comes with some basic languages installed, English for example, but you may be working with a different language and want to start fresh with that. And I'm going to demonstrate this tomorrow. For example, I might, let's say, choose French. And so where do I find that file? Well, I want you to actually go to Beal and look for these things. And so I'll demonstrate going to Beal, finding the French ULB, for example, and bringing that down and importing it into Orature. And suddenly, Orature knows French. It knows all the chapters and verses, and indeed will often offer up the source text for all those for you to begin narration or translation.
That's right, and that is a huge difference from Recorder. That idea of having actually source text and resources in there. We're going to talk about that more later, but that's a really, really key thing that we opened up as we took all of the things that we learned in the making of Recorder and the feedback from the field and our own experience in supporting it. We realized there are some different use cases that we didn't know about in 2015. So, very cool. The other thing is that Orature is not going to require that step through Exchanger to produce those finished files and to put them onto Bible in Every Language. So Orature, as I understand it, can be used independently and produce those finished files that the librarians can then decide to publish onto Beal. Do I have that correct?
Right. We have a librarian who is taking all of these assets, and we'll see a little bit later on how they're going to bring them into our oral or audio section that Beal will present to any particular language. So you go to look up your language, and if source audio is available, it'll show up there. But we have a particular section that allows people to bring it down for their specific tools.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about who actually worked on this new audio section for Bible in Every Language. So pictured on the screen are our two interns. They were here for the summer, and they're actually still here for the fall. On the top is DJ Price. So DJ is
senior. He's currently taking postgraduate classes at Western Kentucky University.
Right, and he lives in Kentucky. So this was actually due to the pandemic. This was our first year of having an intern who was never on site. That was new for us.
That is correct.
Have somebody fully remote. He's done a fantastic job. Unfortunately, he's not available today to come into the studio. However, we do have somebody. Yeah, he's going to school. So we do have somebody here in the studio with us, and that is Tony Tran. Tony, welcome.
Hey, good to see you today.
Good to see you too. So Tony was with us all summer and spent a lot of time working on the audio section of Bible in Every Language, and so he's going to actually help us talk about that a little bit today.
Sure. So I'm so happy to join on the team for the internship from the summer, and I've been working with DJ Price, we have been developing the software and making websites. So this is the first application or the website that we have created for the summer, and it is called Audio Bible in Every Language. So you can go to the online the website, open it, and type in URL audio.bibleinEverylanguage.org. You'll find the website that we're using for the audios. So
let's pause just for 1 second and let people know. So this is the global premiere of audio.bibleineverylanguage.org. Doesn't that sound great when we say that's the global premiere?
Just rolls off the tongue.
It rolls off the tongue. But the thing to know is, at the moment, there's no links directly from bibleineverylanguage.org quite yet. Those will probably go up tomorrow or maybe the next day. But you can, like Tony said, you can go directly to that URL, just audio.bibleineverylanguage.org, and we are going to show that today.
Yeah. So why don't I have you drive, and I'll talk a little bit about it. So this is that home page here, and let's go ahead and click on that. Let's get started. So what I'm seeing here now is a list of the languages that are available. And these languages are not all of the languages that we're aware of. These are what we refer to as our gateway languages. So eventually this will include all the languages, but right now it is filtered down to our gateway languages. Right. And we'll see why in just a moment. Now, some of them are grayed out. Some of them actually have some content that we want to show you today. You see English and the Hindi and the Ilocano. So as we click down into English, for example, we have a choice. And that choice here is essentially, hey, the site is asking me, what do you want to do with it? Our first choice here is BTT Recorder. And that is basically saying, hey, if I've got a copy of Recorder and I actually need to download the source audio for that, this is a convenient place for me to be able to do that. So for example, you might drill down there. And we can roll down and we should be able to see. Now these are all the examples of content that has been downloaded for English, and again the books that are available are highlighted. We can go down to Titus there for a moment. Now there's a couple things that you're seeing here. I see the book of Titus, and there's a download the book. Now this will download the TR file, or essentially the BTT recorder file that I would need for here, and that is the entirety of the book. So these are actually stored either as MP3s or WAV files, but this could be considerably large depending on where you are. If you're in the US or have a wide broadband connection, sure, go ahead and download the whole thing. But you may only want to, or are capable of downloading one chapter at a time. You can download exactly what you need. The minimum component would be a complete chapter at a time. And the result of which is, I have an example here. I've got Hindi actually loaded up here in the book of Titus. And so if I was to go ahead and record that, having downloaded previously the file for that, I'm going to go ahead and play the source audio.
पौलुस की ओर से जो परमेश्वर का दास और यीशु मसीह का प्रेरित है, परमेश्वर के चुने हुए लोगों के विश्वास को स्थापित करने.
So that was the first chapter, first verse of Titus in Hindi. And it was just as easy. I did that through the browser. I went to audio.bibleineverylanguage.com, downloaded the TR file, and was able to import that, point the program to that and start the project. And it's automatically available for me to start listening to and begin the drafting and the translating process. If we go back a couple steps here, we also see that we have MP3 files. So there might be several reasons that you want MP3s. You might be in a situation where you actually have your phone alongside of you. Maybe you're working with a tablet or a computer or something like that, and you've got multiple devices. That might be a convenient way of doing it because internet is perhaps easier through the phone, or it's just simply more convenient. You got headphones on, you can play it that way. Or maybe you're just wanting to take the work and share it, maybe using it for consumption purposes in the mass methodology, sharing it for yourself or for a group. In similar fashion, we'd click on, again, let's just use Titus here as our example. We can see here, however, in this particular example, the entirety of the book is not available yet, but we have the individual chapters, so you might want to just download those one at a time. And Tony is downloading it as we speak and playing it.
Paul, a servant of God and an apostle of Jesus Christ, for the faith of God's chosen people and the knowledge of the truth.
And so that is real time, Tony using that. Now we also, behind the scenes, we have a librarian, as we call him.
Right.
Shout out to Roger. You do a great job, man.
Thanks, Roger.
And so these are people that are going to be handling the content that is destined for Beal, or is coming from our teams working on our gateway languages. So we'll talk more about this tomorrow, but right now our emphasis is really working on gateway languages, because that's what enables us to use a lot of the software and be able to have that source for those languages or those translators that have a preference or need just the oral, where written language doesn't make sense. So we have a heavy concentration on doing that. So our goal is to kind of take all those gray boxes you saw on the previous couple screens and fill them out. So the more gateway languages we have, the easier it is to scale towards the translations.
Yeah, let's take just a minute and geek out about the server, okay? Because there's some cool stuff going on, I think, that people might be interested in. On the one hand, you might think to yourself, hey man, it's 2020. What does it take to put up a website? That's not a big deal, right? But the reality is there's more going on here than is obvious. And part of that is we needed a website that was human navigable, right? So it needs to have pictures and images and things, and you can click on it as a person. But you know what's not actually good at browsing websites is computers. Not the computer when you're driving it, but we needed Orature to be able to reach out to this server and know all the books, all the chapters, all the languages that were available, present that to the user, and then for the user to say, yeah, what I want you to download is Titus and Hindi. And then it know where to find just those files without having to go through all this graphical interface. So there's really two things going on, one of which isn't immediately obvious, which is that API, where your software can download all this audio, and really any software will be able to talk to it, not just Orature. Mm-hmm. Anybody would be able to write an app to consume out of that API because it's structured in a way that's logical and predictable. But also, if people are just browsing around, somebody finds Bible in every language and says, man, I'd like to see if there's a Bible in my language, they can come in here as a person and find their language and go through. The other thing you touched on is right now, it's primarily gateway language oriented because we needed to fill that niche of having all that source audio available. But it is ready to host the HLs as HLs get completed. And in fact, we even got a challenge from Michael Ropp the other day for DOT. He said, well, this is great. Will you be able to put the DOT video files up there? And we went, sure. Yeah, we'd love to do that too. So this falls into the roadmap category, not into the completed category, but that's going to be coming as well. So it's really the AV or media side of Beal.
You know what you're doing next.
Yep.
Well, in reality, we have a sizable backlog of GLs that are finished being translated, and those actually are going to go through that librarian process and get all processed up and put in, particularly English. English has been done for a while, but it's been a challenge, I think, for people to be able to get English and get it loaded into their recorder and into their Orature. This is going to help with that. We've also signed contracts, and they've started to work both in India and in Indonesia, yeah, doing 2 gateway language projects for us, which we are just paying to have narrated. So these are narrations, not translations. We'll also talk about that a little bit in a few minutes. So we are, as WA, the tech team and others, the content team, Chris Shark on her team, we're all working to try to get the rest of those GLs narrated to be available for source language.
Yep, and it's desperately needed to be able to scale this out for all hard languages. So
yeah, very cool. Well, Tony, I'd love to know just what your experience was as an intern. How did you like working with Glenn? This is the moment where you can tell me whatever you want, and Glenn won't listen.
Yeah, so I don't think Glenn would be taking this to home. Okay, but it was really awesome. I had a great time with the team and with the the software that I work with and learn as I am growing. So I recognize that even though after school, but this is a really, really good environment for me. Because I had not the feeling of pressure from work or the pursuing of projects deadline and stuff like that. But I have really complex and flexible. So the working environment and the team is awesome. They're really helpful and willing to help me. And I made an opportunity to come down here to participate in different kind of activities as well, just kayaking or stuff like that. So that's amazing.
Right. Yeah,
and I love it. Yep.
Oh, it's been great to have you this summer and this fall as well, and we'll see what happens in the future. So
yep.
So thanks for coming in.
Yes.
We're gonna let you out, and we're gonna keep going.
All right.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
So Glenn, we've mentioned a couple of times, hey, what have we learned as we've gone through this process? We've got 5 years now under our belts in terms of oral Bible translation. So what does that look like? And Craig is going to get our slides going again. Here they come. So here's what we figured out. I think back to 2015, and the use case that was brought to us for oral Bible translation was, hey, we need a tool for people who are non-literate, don't read at all, They're strictly oral communicators, very low to zero technical ability. Okay, so it seemed obvious. Got to be a touchscreen. Got to have the minimum number of buttons. We used to sort of brag about the fact that Recorder only has like 5 buttons or something like that. Like it's there's almost no language in the user interface. Very, very simple. Play the source, record your voice, listen to it back, and go on to the next verse. And I think for that, it's done really well. But after that kind of launched and we started doing some work, we realized that's actually not representative of all the people who want to do oral Bible translation or people who want to produce audio scripture.
Correct. So one of the interesting things out of that is that we are, with this next product we're talking about tomorrow, with Orature, is, we went beyond just making a tool to accomplish the problem or solution to the problem. What we started recognizing is we need a comprehensive solution. We have to build a system around audio. We have to almost consider how does it go through the process and end up as a end product?
Right.
And we had to think about all those things. We're still working on that. Yeah. But Orature is that attempt to move in that direction.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that we learned is that not every oral Bible translator is non-literate. So the assumption was, well, these folks, their heart language is unwritten, therefore they probably don't read. But the reality is many of them are, well, first of all, they're all bilingual, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be doing Bible translation. And many of them are actually quite literate in the language of wider communication or in the gateway language.
My wife is an editor and proofreader. You know how she reads books?
How?
She listens to them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we learned that, the assumption that a person using our software wouldn't be able to read it all was a mistake. That they would, in many cases, be quite literate in the GL, but they're not literate in their heart language because it's simply unwritten. So that was the first thing that we learned. The next thing that we learned is that not every scenario calls for a tablet. Tablets are great. They're low cost. They're low energy. There's a lot of things going for them. They have no moving parts, no fans to suck up dust and wear out or things like that. But let's be realistic. They're lower performance. They often are quite limited on space, on constraint.
Definitely.
They have quite a small screen. So there are, trade-offs when you go with the tablet.
And also the case that it isn't necessarily the best environment for other compatible software that you might want to run at the same time.
Right.
So oftentimes you're struck with groups that also maybe want to use a keyboard,
right,
or a mouse,
right,
because for them it's quicker.
Yeah, for sure. We learned that not every user wants that extremely simplified interface that we've spent so much time on for Recorder. Some users do, but some users don't. Actually, some users are quite proficient with technology, and they find the very, very simplified interface of Recorder to be a hindrance. It doesn't allow them to do the things that they would like it to do.
Think about any software that you are a power user of. I mean, you just quickly move. You don't even think about it. Maybe you're using short keys. Maybe you just have your workflow that you use that would take a long time to teach somebody else, expertise-wise.
Right.
But for you, it's really fast and efficient to be able to do it that way. And we want to be able to introduce that as an option. So considering people that either have their own preferred software, which we'll show tomorrow,
yep,
or the ability to kind of work through a little bit faster as a power user.
Yeah, I think the fourth thing that we learned that was really important is that not every audio project is translation.
That's right.
So the most obvious one is we got all these gateway languages, all written, got the translations done, unencumbered by copyright, ready for the global church to use as source text, and now we need them in audio. Well, they don't need a fresh translation. They need a narration. And narration is a very different beast than translation. There isn't all the steps of MAST for a narration. What you need to do is you need to take your written scripture and you need to read it into the microphone in a structured way, either verse by verse or by chapter and things like that. You need to drop in those verse markers, and then you need to turn the thing out so that it can be used as a source audio.
Yeah.
It doesn't need all the steps of translation. The translation was already done. It's a written translation. So not every audio project is translation.
And now with a larger screen, we can actually support that by showing text at the same time, making that a lot more convenient, something you actually couldn't do on the tablet.
Yeah, there's just not enough real estate to both show the text that you're narrating and to have that interface for the recording screen as well.
Often people would have to use multiple screens, and that ends up in click here, wait over here, move there. it took them a while to figure out how to do that, but it'd be nice to bring that all together.
Yeah, the alternative was also a lot of times people would have to print stuff out. You know, you'd have to, your second screen would basically be a sheet of paper where you had printed your ULB out and you were going to narrate that. So I know we keep saying we're going to talk more about that later, but tomorrow we are going to talk in detail and show all of these things as we do the Orature demo. So let's take a moment and see if we've got any questions and answers here. I'm getting the fingers from my from the producer. Question: is this related to ShareFile? Great question. Why don't you ask, or why don't you answer that?
Yeah, so actually what we demoed earlier with Tony is a easier way than ShareFile. So for example, we might be working with a group or a partner in which they are doing translations or narrations and providing them to us with ShareFile. That's fantastic. It's a good way to do that. But it does require that we have user accounts, and then a person coming in would have to figure out where they need to go and drop those files off. But with the audio at BibleTranslationTools.org, you can just dive right in. You don't require an account. All you need is a browser on any given device. We did it in tablets, we did it in phones, we did it in computers today. Very easy to do to be able to find the files that I need. The other process of being able to submit them, however, is still the same process it was before. Things that are going to go ultimately, whether they be written or oral, need to go through the process of vetting and promoting, and so that's what our library function does. So we'll still be taking some of the assets that are coming from ShareFile right now and moving them also over to audio at BibleInEveryLanguage.org.
Yeah, the ShareFile, like you said, it is still the place where either things that are in progress or things that are done but aren't published yet and you would like to be published, drop them in ShareFile, and we can just let the content team know, hey, these are here. Mm-hmm. This is who worked on them. Here's all the copyright releases, the statements of faith, all those things that we require before we would put that onto our website so that we know it's legal for us to have it and that it's going to be available for the global church. So ShareFile is still that intermediate step, but ShareFile really was never a good solution for the public to get access to files. We have been sharing the English gateway language files through ShareFile. Very rarely does that get used. There is a link in one of the BTT websites. I think it's on the same website where you would download Recorder. There is a link that you can find to get English for now. We'll go ahead and get rid of that, and we're going to repoint that over to audio.bibleinEveryLanguage.org. But so it does still have a role, at least in the temporary of, hey, this is a place where you can upload everything.
Thanks for that question.
Good question. So next question, what are the expected file sizes, download times, any zip files, are zip files available? This is a great question. Obviously, audio files are so much larger than written files. So just a couple of notes to help with. If you've used any of the tools, you know that the native file format is WAV. Mm-hmm. Okay, we use WAV because you can edit WAV and it doesn't decrease the quality. It's lossless, exactly. All that kind of stuff. The downside, of course, with WAV is the files are enormous. Big. So part of what the audio server does, and this is a little bit more roadmap than done, but it takes those, it ingests those WAV files that are ready to be published, and then it's going to parse those out into MP3s. It's going to parse those out into those
TR files.
Yeah, the TR files, which is the compressed source audio files that you need for Recorder, things like that. Again, a little bit on the roadmap. It's actually actively being worked on by Max at this moment. So when we say roadmap, we mean just around the next couple of bends. We're not talking about quarters away from now. In terms of file sizes, it just varies. It just varies with the size of the chapter. It depends on if you're downloading a whole book, things like that. In terms of serving the files out of here, it's on a gig pipe, so they go pretty fast. It's going to be constrained by the other end, obviously. It's not going to be constrained on our end. If anybody is interested, that server actually does live in our data center here on campus for a couple of reasons. Security is one of them, and just the ability to host those files without having to pay for what's called egress, which is the charges that if we hosted them on a commercial web server, we would actually have to pay every time somebody downloads. It's a few fractions of a cent, but it could add up. And so for the moment, we're hosting that in-house. We've got an upgraded pipe for that and a shiny new server, so that stuff is all going just fine.
So if the question, by the way, was somehow asking if they would receive a zip of what they're downloading,
yeah, good question.
Actually, no, it would be the TR file and the MP3 file that you need.
Right.
The reason for this is we don't want to add another layer of complexity. If I had just my tablet and I had a zip file, it may not actually have an unzipper. I would have to go find that and be able to get the content. We don't want that to happen. So we give you just the files that you selected and just download them directly.
Yeah, the other notable thing about MP3 that folks may not know is that if you zip an MP3, the size does not get any smaller because the MP3 file format already has compression built into it. So the only value you get by zipping MP3s together is if you want to collect multiple MP3s into one file and only download one file. But it actually, like Glenn said, your phone may not know what to do with that if you download an MP3 or if you download a zip file. But if you download an MP3, your phone probably does know what to do with that.
Yeah, good.
So
another good question.
I'm going to just check any more. Okay, no more Q&A. We are wrapping up. So if you have any more, now is the moment for you to drop those in. Just a couple of reminders. So tomorrow is part 2, same time, 3 p.m. Eastern.
It's a separate link.
Different link. Yeah.
Check your calendar.
You should have gotten 2
If you
meeting
accepted
invites.
it's the tomorrow's link.
Yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll have a link directly from this one to the next one. We'll be doing Q&A again tomorrow as well. Anything else before we go?
Be safe, and thanks so much for your attention.
Yeah, I think I just want to mention how much I appreciate the hard work that the team has put in this year on this ecosystem of products. We've gotten a lot done in 2020, and I'm really excited to see these things start to hit the field, and that's coming starting tomorrow. So,
yeah.
Very good. Thanks so much, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.